Hello and welcome to episode 279 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Patrick Knisley.
My name is Summer Rain.
My name is Jordan Willis.
And boy, oh boy, we have a wonderful guest this week. We've got Vincent Goodwin back on the podcast.
Howdy. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Vincent, you are here to discuss what is being termed as the Teraleak. Game Freak has been hacked and had a bunch of data stolen. You know, we're calling it a leak, but like we were discussing, it is a bit of more like a theft. And a bunch of info and data has come out about old games and future games. And we're going to talk about the leak in general, sort of the big picture of it, how it happened, what it is. And we're not going to get too deep into specifics of it, but we'll probably talk about some of the things that came out. And we'll try to give our best sort of warnings about those things when we get to them. But we've also got a lot of news that we're going to talk about. Alarmo is a thing. Nintendo is putting out a physical alarm device, y'all. There is a playtest program that they have announced that's happening in about a week from when we're recording this, as I recall. Mario Party Jamboree coming out this week. I know we're going to get into all of that and more, but before we talk about all of those things, how's everybody doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm still getting ready for hanging some art, some of my photography over at Epoch. So I've mostly been doing that, just getting all my print files in order. Today, I got in mats for frames that I already bought. I bought some frames whenever the TV show I was working on got canceled. They sold all of the set decoration stuff, and there was just about 25 wrapped brand new frames. And I said, great, I'm gonna snag those for like way less than I would have bought otherwise. And then so I bought some mats online, cut specifically for those. And then I'm going to get all my prints ordered this week. But I also ordered a zine today that I'm going to have that's going to accompany, and it's going to have most of the work that I'm showing is going to be also in the zine. So I have like different options. If people don't want to buy a piece off the wall, they can like buy a little zine and still like have something to take home. But yeah, something, a nice little thing, but
can we order your zine?
Yes. So fun thing, I'm also trying to launch a web store at the exact same time. So I'm working on I've already figured out how to like drop ship some prints from my local printer that I like, and I know the prints look good. So I'm going to try to update and like create an Etsy account at the same time as I hang everything. So if people are not able to make it, but they still want to buy a print or buy a zine, they're going to be able to do that online. So yes, thank you for asking, because I am ready, dude. I'm trying to be ready.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And I love zines. So I definitely,
100%.
I want to order your zine, and I want to make sure our listeners can order your zine.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks dude. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I also just like, that balance of real life, having to do things in real life as opposed to just being a nonstop dweeb online. Been helping my parents a lot with their business, doing shows with my mom, helped to put on a bridal shower for one of my best friends. Like, I'm like, I'm like being a human. Like I went to a pumpkin patch and did the world's largest corn maze, by the way. They do they do cool themes every year, except for this year apparently, which the theme this year is just John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. And I was like, this has to be sponsored, because after all of the layoffs the past like 2 years, I don't think like farmers are really excited about John Deere. I was like, the whole time we were like going through the corn maze, we would start singing I'm an international harvester, because like fuck John Deere. The MagFest hotel lottery also happened. I'm going to talk about it because this is like important to me and it's nerdy. So I've talked about MagFest on this podcast before. It is a huge music and gaming festival that happens every year in Washington, D.C. In January. You have to buy a badge by a certain date in order to be eligible for their hotel lottery. And the way that the lottery works is that once you've purchased your badge by a certain date, you're eligible for the lottery. It allows you to enter. You have to be in a waiting room by a certain time. And then when that time hits, everybody gets a randomized number. And whatever your number is, determines when you get to actually go into this portal and reserve your hotel room. And amongst my group of friends, we all figured out like what the odds were, what the numbers were going to be, in order to be able to get like certain kinds of rooms. A lot of our friends did get into the host hotel. I am not in the host hotel, but I am across the street from it, which is still a lot better than most people because there were 13,000 people in that lottery, and you needed to be in like the 2,000 range in order to be like in the immediate vicinity. That's how many rooms were actually in the block this year.
Wow.
So it gets worse. It's a bloodbath. It gets worse every year. And that's without announcing any guests. We still don't, well, they announced one today, but it was a band that like we all kind of knew was going to be there. I think they're still finalizing major contracts, and I'm kind of scared. The theme is Sonic. So we're kind of expecting Crush 40 to be like one of the headliners, which would be insane. I'm going to stop blabbing about that. That's now that the hotel is secured, I can start like planning my lineup and everything.
Very nice. I'll go real quick. I have 3 things I want to mention. One is, I think I talked a couple of weeks ago about doing the Citizen Forester program here through the city I live in. Well, I had our last thing, and I am now officially a Citizen Forester in the city of Pflugerville, which doesn't really mean anything, but I helped plant some trees at a park, and I'm going to help plant more on future planting days, because this is actually the tree planting season around here. So there's some things coming up in Pflugerville and broader Texas related to that, but that's been cool. I got to go to the Tomb Raider TV anime show premiere, y'all.
Wow.
David brought me along.
Aww.
So,
wow, I can't believe he chose you over me.
Sorry, Jordan. But it was pretty cool. I got to enjoy the screening of several of the episodes on the big screen at a Flix brew house, which was really cool. And I really enjoy the show, and maybe we'll talk about it in the news too, because it's news. But so I'll say maybe some of that. And then the other third thing is that Steam Next Fest is happening right now, and I have been madly trying to get ready for that with Monochrome Heights, the game I'm making, participating in Steam Next Fest. It has been a bit of a blur of a week with all those things, but especially that one. But maybe we'll talk more about that as well. What about you, Vince? How have you been?
I've been pretty good. So we just moved to a new location within our offices. So I had to pack all my Mario toys, and I have to unpack them tomorrow. So it's going to be like a full day thing. It's like a whole box. If you go onto my TikTok, I have multiple TikToks of just all my Mario Kart toys, because that's how much I have. So I'm very excited to unpack my new Waluigi toy. So that's a big thing. And then right before this, I just finished helping my daughter paint a pumpkin for her reading festival, and she picked Sonic the Hedgehog because we read Sonic books at night.
Awesome.
I am a Mario boy, but you make sacrifices for your children. So we made a blue hedgehog. It's a 2-day affair for this little kindergartner. We read the World of Sonic book every night. She's getting the Encyclopedia for her birthday in a couple weeks, which is a whole book about Sonic the Hedgehog. So we are very much into it. And then me and my wife just finished a full run of the Chucky movie series, which we'd never seen before. And those are a lot of fun. They get very queer and campy by the back half, and they are quite fun. So I would highly recommend the Chucky movie series. They're pretty fun if you've not checked those out.
I think I might add that to the list, because this year we did Paranormal Activity.
Nice.
And it is like really up and down.
Mhm.
And then by the last 2, I was just like, we got to find something else, So
Yeah.
I think that might be on the
Yeah.
list for next year.
We try to do a run like every year. Like a couple years ago, we did Final Destination, which was a lot of fun.
Oh.
Those get real silly real quick. And then Halloween, obviously, like we've done stuff like that. But
That's our other runner up for next
Yeah.
year is Halloween. Yeah.
We're going to move along to our shout out section. First up is that we did an episode on the future of Nintendo Switch Online last week. A couple of folks over on the Discord want to shout out the Huge 27 and Swampy Southpaw, who both shared their love for the Xbox and PlayStation phone apps. And we're all hoping Nintendo's phone app is more like them down the line. And then this one's related to you, Jordan. New Metal Zaddy over on the Discord said they also wouldn't want to pay for Cedar tickets, which sparked a discussion about the opening act for that you mentioned. And I had to look up who they were, and I wish I hadn't because I read some interview with that person, and yikes.
The band, for the record, is Skillet. They're a Christian rock band.
Oh, it was, something. Anyway, if you too want to be shouted out, then leave a comment, somewhere online, send us a DM, leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, or share the podcast somewhere online like Reddit. We always appreciate that. If you want to financially support the podcast, we have a Patreon, and you can become a patron over there. Thanks to all our patrons on Patreon. And then if you want to see our lovely faces, then make sure you head on over to our YouTube channel, because you can watch the podcast in the video version, and make sure while you're there to hit like and subscribe. And with that, we're going to talk about the news and rumors for the week. First up in the news this week is this device that Nintendo has announced. Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. Man, our episode on Nintendo Switch Online was very prescient, I guess, because the first couple of news items here are definitely related. This one is related because you have to have Nintendo Switch Online to get the device. At least I know they sold some at a store too, right? But gang, this is like, just briefly, it's an alarm clock that watches you while you sleep and makes noises when you're waking up, and has a bunch of options. I don't know what do y'all think about this?
You can't share a bed if you have this. This is for like solo losers.
Solo losers?
Like me, I'm buying this.
Why is that? Because like your partner will be like, I'm not going to judge you, or like you don't need it to be seen. Like I turn the Kinect around the other way. It's in my bedroom right now because we don't need it watching things. But like, because it does have a camera or something, doesn't it? Or is it just like a sensor?
The functionality that, right, like why it's so expensive and everything, it would be more difficult. It's kind of useless if there's more than one person in the bed, right? So it gets kind of messed up for that reason.
Okay.
Same reason, honestly. I mean, my dogs were enough of a reason that I had to stop using Pokemon Sleep, because it does like the bed movement and like snoring, and it was picking up my dog snoring. I'm like, that's not my behavior, that's the dog. So
it's the dog, I swear. No, that makes sense though. I hadn't thought about the fact because of the sleep sensor is a part of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the trailer right now, because I actually didn't watch the trailer, and they only showed people in twin and full size beds in this by themselves. Just throwing that out there. But $100, like,
yeah.
So it's not for a child, like that's for someone with disposable income.
Well, that's what my question was. Like, who is this for? Like,
me.
What child?
It's for me, Jordan.
You and your dogs.
Me and my dogs waking up to Pauline. No, that's the thing. If they put Fire Emblem in this, though,
dude,
it's over. But then it'll be sold out by then. That's where I'm struggling here. I'm like, are they going to release Fire Emblem? Aren't they? Do I buy it? Is it already sold out? I don't know. I guess I'll go look. Is it still available?
It says pre-purchase, so I don't.
Actually, I'm not sure the sales have even happened yet.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the pre-purchase. Okay, so you can pre-purchase it.
Oh, okay.
Why are they calling it that? Why aren't they calling it a pre-order?
I don't know.
Well, why is this even a thing? I don't know. There's so many questions.
For me, Jordan.
Well, it definitely makes me think about that patent we saw a while back. I think that was for this, or at least it seems like it, right? Because we were all like, why does it need a Wi-Fi chip? And why is it so underpowered? And why does it plug into the wall if it needs a Wi-Fi chip? And well, here's the device, y'all. And then also to y'all's point, like, is this for kids or what? Real briefly, I watched this with my son. He's like, I want that. And like, we're like, you already have an Alexa. And my wife he showed it to my wife, and she was like, well, we could just move the Alexa somewhere else. And then I go, it's $100. And she's like, oh, never mind. Because it does seem like it's for kids.
It's so
but that's a big ask. Yeah. And Ring Fit Adventure is on it. I think the things that are in it, it's like they looked at the top 10 best-selling Nintendo Switch games, and they put those in. Is what it
Except
feels
for
like.
Animal Crossing or Mario Kart.
Yeah, Mario Kart and Animal Crossing are the are the ones they announced that are going to come down the line.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like Splatoon
This thing has
levels?
updates? Oh,
yeah, so
my
it's going to
God.
update with additional games, and those are the only two they have confirmed will be in the update.
That's what I was saying about Fire Emblem is like, I don't know if they're going to decide to add it and what they'll announce Engage and right instead of Three Houses. And then I'll be like, come on.
It's driven by the IP though, right? Like, cause my kid saw the Pikmin part and was like, that was like, I think he would have wanted it anyway, but yeah, like he was like, I could be woken up by Pikmin. Yeah. Pikmin making weird noises.
Oh, that's like sweet though.
I don't know, y'all. It's weird. I feel like we could talk about this for an hour, but we couldn't.
We gotta go.
We gotta move on to the other sort of big Nintendo Switch Online related announcement, which is this playtest program. We will know what this is in about a week, I think.
We're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to. Yeah, we should get into that. So they had signups for this vague playtest program, right? Where you could sign up to be part of this test of something. You have to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack member. I don't know why, or if that's just to limit the amount of people. And you have to have the ability to download like 2 gigs, a little bit more than that. And they ask that you have a wired connection. And it's going to be happening on the 23rd through the 5th. So the 23rd of October through the 5th. There's been a lot of speculation about what this is and what it can mean. And the signups have already happened and people are in or not in, right? But what do y'all think that this playtest is for, or what is some of the things you've heard?
I feel like it's going to be, I mean, it says for a feature. So, I mean, I don't really think it's going to be anything game related, or if it is, like the one thing I heard that maybe makes sense is if they do streaming GameCube games for NSO, which would kind of be to something David had said. He was saying that, you know, GameCube games are too big for them to be put on NSO, but like streaming would eliminate that issue. So that's like the one thing I've heard that maybe makes sense, but it's just really weird because it's only 10,000 people. So if it's a feature that's meant to be used pretty widely online, that's a pretty small sample pool for like voice chat or something of that nature. And 2 gigabytes for like voice chat seems high in my opinion. So I don't know. I'm like really torn. And then the other thing I could think is like maybe some sort of video application. We finally get like Netflix or some shit for, you know, but I don't know. I don't really buy that either.
I think we're going to find out that there's yet another feature that is inside of the Switch that we didn't know about. Remember when we were playing Ring Fit and we were like, what do you mean there's a sensor that knows what my heart rate is? There's going to be something else like that, that they're like, well, what if we finally use this part of the Switch? I have no idea. I'm salty that I wasn't aware of when this went live and couldn't sign up. And I'm salty that the link is still there that says sign up here, that it says through a certain date, even though it's full. Like, why would you not shut off? Why would you not shut that off? Why would you still have make people click through 3 more pages to find out that it's full?
Yeah, apparently they closed it down within 7 minutes.
Well, I was like there when it went live, and I made the mistake of clicking refresh. And when I clicked refresh, within the 5 to 10 seconds of it going live, it was already done. So David got in. So
we had a few other members get in too. So
So we'll find out soon enough, at least us.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Join Discord.
As Vincent said, they have kind of specifically told people who got in that there's no like requirement, though I think it's going to make people agree to something. But the wording, and I don't have it in front of me, I wish I did. It was something like, we ask that you do not discuss the playtest.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe they just do that as a sort of CYA thing, but maybe it is an intentional like thing too, to like, they know people are going to talk about it. And by saying don't talk about it, it makes people want to talk about it more. I don't know.
Didn't they say that we weren't allowed to stream like the Nintendo Switch Sports demo or some dumb thing like that? And of course,
it's the same language, I think, if not exactly, but generally for that Nintendo Switch Sports test, which people shared pretty much immediately.
That might be, you're right. I hadn't even thought about a CYA, like for like the ESRB, like these things aren't technically rated. So like, don't get your pitchforks if somebody says a bad word.
Yeah. And we made them agree to not do, you know what I mean? Like and sign all this stuff that did it, but they don't really care because they kind of want it to go viral or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, we'll know more in
the wired thing is so weird to me. That's the weirdest part. Like that makes no sense to me.
I have heard somebody, and I don't know if this is verified, say that that's some of this language is in all of their testing things, and that might just be because it's a superior online experience.
Boilerplate.
You know what I mean? And like, so they suggest that, but yeah. We'll know more in a couple of weeks whenever this thing is happening, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, because somebody will leak it, if not us. So, all right. Well, we'll move on to talk a little bit about Splatoon 3 and Splatoween. So, just briefly, wanted to mention that we all thought Splatoon 3 going away with the updates, but it would just be kind of recycled stuff. But it is kind of recycled stuff. But there's a Splatfest announced that's more of like a recycled thing from Splatoon 2, right? So the next Splatfest has been announced, and it's, what is it? Knights versus wizards versus ninjas. The 3 most common Halloween costumes. Totally, 100%.
No, this is clearly a Fire Emblem theme, actually.
It kind of is, right?
This is Fire Emblem Fates, right?
Archers defeat Pegasuses.
But in addition to this Splatfest, it's been announced that there is going to be new gear, and this is also gear returning from Splatoon 2, but it is new to Splatoon 3. And so I think that's kind of a cool thing that they've set up. We'll see if the future events in Splatoon 3, I mean, they can't do that forever, but continue to drop sort of old but new content. Pretty smart way to keep the game alive that doesn't feel entirely recycled, but kind of is. Next up is that Super Mario Party Jamborees. I almost forgot the super.
That's important. That's the part of the nomenclature. That means it's motion controlled, not motion controlled.
That's a good point. Is that true? Are the only ones that have had super in front of the 2 on the Switch? Yep. Or those particular 2 on the Switch?
Yep. Super Mario Party. Mario Party Superstars has super in the title, but
it's not Super Mario Party.
Oh, how convoluted.
Welcome to Nintendo's naming conventions.
Mario Party 5 has a microphone, but there's no nomenclature for that. So,
but anyway, Super Mario Party Jamboree is releasing this Thursday, now that games come out on Thursday.
Let's go.
That's the big development here. So October 17th, day after this podcast comes out, we can start playing Super Mario Party Jamboree. What do y'all think? Are we excited about another Mario Party? Is this more of the same or summer?
I've never bought a Mario Party game before. I'll say it. Guess what? I'm buying this one because Pauline is there.
Nice.
I can't believe I'm just so impressed that she's just in everything now. Mm-hmm. Like she went from like who to, oh yeah, that hot chick from Odyssey is in everything now. Let's put her in everything.
Mm-hmm. That's
or
actually,
like there's an update and now she's in a game, right? Like,
so to that point, Summer, real briefly, like, so we have a couple friends who are somewhat gamers, but they aren't like super Nintendo heads like us. But they came over and we were talking about this game and they brought it up and they were like, and that lady is in it. That lady, what's her name from the, you know what I mean? And I was like, Pauline. And they're like, yeah. And so I think you're right. They are trying to make Pauline more. Like,
she's breaking through. The normies know her.
Mayor Pauline. Thank you very much.
She is an elected official. Apologies.
Whenever she gets her game before Waluigi, I am going to break something though.
She's not a Smash character, right?
No, she's not.
No, she has an absolutely insane trophy level. Or spirit level, excuse me. Her spirit level in Ultimate is just bonkers. I've never been able to beat it.
Waluigi still has that on her But
that usually disqualifies you from having a character if you've
I
got
don't
assist
know.
trophy.
We'll see. Not for Pauline, but we're off topic, y'all.
No, my 10-year-old, I asked him if he was interested, but the last Mario Party game ended in tears. His tears. He's
not yours.
playing it. No. He insisted that I cheated. I probably did. It's Mario Party. What are you going to do, right? That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
He's got to learn young.
You can't cheat in a video game, can you? Unless you like.
No, but it's Mario Party, so it's
you, like,
easy for
stole a
kids to get
star or
upset. Like
something,
that's just like just like what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, he jumped off the Mario Party train. He's not getting back on. At least not now. So.
That's funny. So real quickly, my kid has friends over and they play video games a lot. Surprise, surprise. But he had a couple of friends over and they were playing a Mario Party game. And one of them, I could hear one of them getting really upset and the other one go, "That's the point of the game."
Someone stole someone's star.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Remind me how old they are.
About 9.
This group. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They are developing those personalities. Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm sure we will have more to say about a Super Mario Party Jamboree soon. But also already out is the Tomb Raider anime. David's not here, so we can just promote it without any shame or sense of like self whatever. I have watched a good chunk of this so far, and I love it. I think if you like powerhouse, animation like the Castlevania show, it's very much gonna work for you. I really liked the new Tomb Raider games, the new trilogy. I don't know if there's a better term for that. The 2013 and beyond trilogy.
It does have a name, but I don't know it it's like the Survivor trilogy.
Oh yes, you're right. I think that's what it is. And apparently the show, draws from all things, but it's working for me as a fan of those games. So I don't know. Has anybody else had a chance to watch any of it yet or any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I watched 2 episodes and I agree. Like I really didn't care too much about Tomb Raider beyond like the first original couple on PlayStation 1. And then I think I dropped off whenever they tried to make it like dark and edgy on the PS2. And I was like, okay, I'm good. And then the new one, the reboot, just Tomb Raider came out and I played that and I was like, this game's really good. And like, I liked what they did with the character and like kind of modernizing her and bringing her up to, now instead of just being like, oh, look, she has big polygonal boobs and that's her character traits. And it's like, no, she has personality and like the arc of her story got like interesting. So it was cool. It's cool to see like that kind of carry over to this as well. So it's kind of like, yeah, I just, as a fan of Castlevania, like a really big fan of Castlevania, it is cool to see. Because I watched Skull Island as well, and I watched it and I was like, it's good, but I'm like not as into the King Kong lore, and I didn't realize how much Tomb Raider lore I know, just like stuffed in the back of my brain. I was like, watching the show, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, all right. But anyway,
that's how it was during the trailer. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that guy.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, how do I know her best friend's name? Like, I usually watches over me.
Same. Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, it's good.
And there's lots of little nods to stuff as well from those games or from all the games. But anyway, we can keep it moving to talk a little bit about itch.io, but also just sort of broadly the .io domain on the internet. So this kind of came out recently because earlier this month, the British government is announced that it's going to give up its stake or its ownership or whatever claim over the part of the world that is in the Indian Ocean, the IO, that I guess is where that domain is technically connected to, the British Indian Ocean territory. I guess there has been competing claims about it with another island country. And so as a result of this, the internet organizations that regulate domains and that sort of thing, there has been some precedent set in the past that when a country's change and that sort of thing, those domains get shut down. So that's a long way of saying that all of the .io domains are a little bit in a state of limbo. It's a long thing and it might not happen because this is kind of a popular domain, but it's just an interesting thing and it won't necessarily happen for a little while. And I'm sure they could all just change their names to be itch.io.com or whatever. But just an interesting reminder that what we think of as a stable digital world is not, right? I don't know if anybody's looked into this or thought about it or.
I did. Once I read the article, I was like, okay, let's kind of dive into this a little bit. And the article is specifically talking about the Yugoslavia when it broke into different countries. There was .yu, and there was some heists to steal the servers for .yu, so it would be hosted in a different country, which is just wild. But I mean, I feel like the big difference with .io is there's just a ton of tech companies, and there's a lot of money. Not to say there's not a lot of money in Yugoslavia, but I feel like .io has more money tied into it, and they could just start selling .io as its own new domain and make it stand for something else. But it's really curious to see. So I also kind of went through the itch.io forums because I was curious if anyone, like, what are people saying about it? And the loose response I found was from one of the admins there, said that it'll be sad if the itch.io domain becomes no more. It looks like the timeline for this is quite a few years away out, though. We'll spin up a new domain by then if necessary. So looks like they're already kind of like planning for some sort of a future. I don't know how much that particular admin is running this site, but they at least probably have some more knowledge than the average person. So yeah, curious, kind of just wait and see. Really weird just to see .io go away entirely, but there's a lot more money tied up in it than I think people realize. So I feel like it might be here to stay.
I'm not going to put this in the games we've been playing segment, but this reminded me of all the random shit out there on .io. So I went and played a round of Slither.io just because I felt like I had to.
Yeah.
But we can move along. A new analysis or report that came out related to piracy of video games. So this was an analysis done on the Denuvo DRM, which is the one of the companies that makes one of these sort of digital rights management. That's what DRM stands for, right? I think something like that. One of these things that prevents people from, pirating or playing without owning a game. They usually get cracked, right? Eventually. And that's sort of what this was analysis was on, was when they got cracked and what that did to the sales. Jordan, I think you might have done a little bit of deeper dive on this one as well. So if you want to maybe present some of the general findings from this or your thoughts on it.
Yeah, this is always really interesting to me because there's never really, people say piracy hurts video games, but there's not like a really well-studied percentage specifically for reasons I'll start to talk about.
Sometimes I hear the opposite too, right? Like you'll hear the argument that it doesn't hurt, that it helps, which that seems spurious, but
Yeah, the argument is that the people who are pirating the game would never have bought the game in the first place, but that the fact that they're playing it will push marketing in a weird way, which I am a little wishy-washy on that as well. But so the study was by William Volkman, and it was published in a peer-reviewed journal called Entertainment Computing. I think the one of the more interesting parts was the biggest limit to the study was there's a lack of good publicly available sales data, which so he had to use like a proxy. He had to kind of come up with a way to kind of measure this, and it combines the number of new Steam user reviews as well as for single narrative player games, and then also the game's average like active player count as a kind of a proxy of like how much the game is sold, quote unquote.
Sorry to keep interrupting you, Jordan, but this is actually pretty standard. Like there are a lot of websites that you do this and they do it differently, but the one you just mentioned, that methodology is generally thought to be the best. So like there's a website that I use called VG Insights, and a lot of people who do like, I think video game marketing or like indie game analysis, like what genres are doing well, how did a new game do? That's sort of the method that's used. And I don't, you'll hear that it's semi-accurate,
yeah. It's just kind of wild to me that like those sales numbers are still so protected at this point in time. It just seems really strange, especially because if it's all digital and you're not having to like count physical game sales, it should be easier now than ever to be able to.
Bvalve knows.
Yeah, it's true. Nintendo knows. Like they all know, but they don't want to talk about it. And I feel like that's a bigger conversation. But so what the study found eventually, though, was if it's cracked in the first week of release, there's a 20% loss of sales. That's the number they kind of came up with. And that number does go down if it's cracked within the second week versus the third week versus the fourth week. But apparently after the 12th week, if it's cracked, the impact on sales is negligible. It doesn't really matter at that point, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, I mean, just typical game sales, all the sales are in the first 3 months, which, makes sense, but I didn't really think about. But yeah, just interesting to have someone like actually running the numbers on this kind of stuff where when companies complain about DRM or players complain about DRM, there's an actual financial incentive for them to keep it, and that number is apparently 20%.
Real quickly too, just to tie this back into Nintendo, not that these numbers translate directly to Nintendo because it's different, it's closed system and all that, but we've seen Nintendo aggressively go after these Switch emulators, and often, or we hear it's around these Switch emulators playing games before release, and pirated new games and that sort of thing. And, maybe they have some numbers on this too. And that's one of the reasons they're being so aggressive about it.
Yeah. I mean, there is the thought that, like, as we said, like every single pirated game is a lost sale, and that's probably not accurate. Like some people were never going to ever pay for something, you pirated Photoshop. I was never going to pay for Photoshop 20 years ago, right?
Statute of limitations is up. Yeah.
but I remember, I was questioning that because it's like around like Steam, but still like you're pirating it for a system that you can play it on. I feel like there's some more hoops for like Nintendo and PlayStation and the consoles. Like I remember Nintendo said that about before Tears of the Kingdom released, it was leaked, hacked, and there were about 1 million downloads of that prior to launch, and they sold about 10 million. So that's 10%. And so I don't know, like, what are those million? I feel like there are people in our Discord that had done it, but they were either gonna buy it anyways. You're just excited to play something early, which I get. You wanting to see things earlier. But I also am not necessarily the baseline for like I don't know how pervasive it is that people want to pirate Switch games ahead of time and are playing it on different devices. And is that a 20% number? Is that a 10% number? Like, what is that number? And when you're dealing with like estimates of like, you have like a closed system, like we don't actually know how many Steam sales there were. We don't really know how many Nintendo sales there really are. Because I think they don't report digital, right? They only report physical through the, starts with a C.
Circana, but we do hear from Nintendo in their financial reports sometimes what their sales are for certain things, but they don't tell us everything. And they usually only tell you things that relate to that quarter or that make them sound good.
For their stockholders,
that make them
shareholders.
sound good, yeah.
We can make inferences just based on the digital only when you go to the Nintendo eShop and like on the Switch and see like best-selling games.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's digital only.
Yeah, I'm not part of the scene of pirating new games. Like I have no problem going and getting Donkey Kong 94 right now because it's not available, starring Pauline. But
yes.
It's interesting to see somebody try to make some numbers though, and share them. So
it is. It's interesting. I'd be curious to see like more into that. And I thought also was interesting is like he called it like an event that happens regardless of like reviews or anything like that. It's like it's more like on the time frame that it happens. Like it has nothing to do with like it has more impact than like bad reviews or anything else. Like it's like a direct thing, and it can be more plotted. Like if it happens on week 5, it's going to do this kind of number versus. And again, I don't know the accuracy, but it's peer reviewed, so there's probably some intelligence behind it. I would agree.
Well, we can move on to our last couple items here. First up is that a couple of weeks ago we talked about a new law in California that's coming down the line. I think next year is when it's supposed to be active, but getting out ahead of it is Valve, who now has a new disclosure when you purchase a game, and I say purchase, but or to buy and own, but they are now clarifying that you don't really own the game, I guess, and using the language of a purchase of a digital product grants a license for the product on Steam is the exact language, apparently, that they now use, most likely to be out ahead of this law and be in compliance with it. So whether this is going to move any needles, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but it's already happening. That this is, now changing language on storefronts, and now also we are here again, once again, talking about it. So
I'm already seeing heavy discourse because of the rewording without understanding that it's likely because of the new California laws. So it is creating conversations, kind of like what I was like. I remember saying that, like, I think this is going to make it so that we all have to see this dialogue and it's going to make conversation.
Yeah.
That is exactly what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's no different than like when California had or New York had laws like this. You got to put the calorie count at the restaurants, and like, and Dunkin' Donuts isn't going to make a different sign for just New York and California. They're just going to print the same signs and send them all over the country. I'm sure that like Valve didn't want to put if California, then you get this message, otherwise don't in their code line. It's like, fuck it. Let's just, put it across. So goes California, so goes us. And that's and as a Texan, that's not a problem.
Yeah, we'll take the win.
Yeah, it's just we're slowly moving towards a future where you do not own anything, and anything you think you own is rented or licensed out to you. And this is just another small step in that direction that does make me sad, just in general. But that's why I still like to collect physical games. It's just, I can actually hold this thing that I own. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, oppositely, I've got 2 Metroid Zero Mission cartridges that don't work. And I got a lot of, and I got a bunch of DVDs that don't work anymore.
True.
And my hourglass is now on that back half. So, all things must pass. Like
that's what I was going to say. Nothing lasts forever. I think, but anyway,
my Ninja 5.0 copy will last forever. Will be passed down for generations. My great-grandchildren will remember my name through my Cubivore copy.
Cubivore. All right. Well, we'll move on just briefly. Steam Next Fest is happening.
Yay.
And David usually does sort of a Steam Next Fest corner. He's not here on this episode. Maybe he will do one next week. It actually runs from the 14th of October through the 21st. If you're out there, just a quick call to action here from me, which is that my game, Monochrome Heights, is participating in Steam Next Fest, and I've got an updated demo. It's pretty big. It's got a lot of content, and I'm really pleased with it. And just so definitely go check that out and wishlist the game. And then also, I've got a couple friends who have demos up in this that I want to shout out to. One of them is No Signal is the name of the game. A friend of mine, Ava, makes that game. There are a couple of No Signals on Steam, so look for the one by Exodrifter, I think is the studio name. And then my friend Jesse is making a game called Battle Poet that is also participating in Steam Next Fest. And that is sort of like a roguelike deck building type game, but with poetry. So you gather lines of poetry. So check those out. And then maybe we'll have more to say about Steam Next Fest next week as well. But I think that is going to do it then for our news segment. And we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk all about this massive leak that has happened over at Game Freak. We are back, and this week we are talking about the Game Freak leak, the Teraleak, as it is being called. Essentially,
is that because of the Giga Leak and the Mega Leak? Is that?
I think it is a terabyte.
It's a terabyte of data, but yes.
Oh, okay. Because the big Nintendo one was the Giga Leak, right?
That's right.
Yes. They were calling this a Giga Leak initially, and then we realized how much it was. It is historically larger than previous leaks.
So just within the last few days, that has come out that Game Freak essentially has, I assume, been hacked and had all this information stolen, or this information has come out through some sort of shady source that maybe somebody here can elaborate on in a minute. But a ton of information about old Game Freak projects and future Game Freak projects is slowly coming out more and more. And that is kind of similar to the Giga Leak, which is something that they kind of slowly released info on. Briefly, we have had a couple past episodes that you could go check out if you're interested. We did a episode on the ethics of leaks a really long time ago. I want to say back in 2019, which is still relevant, and maybe we'll touch a little bit on, but we did a full episode kind of talking about something I'm sure we'll get into today, which is how do we feel about this and how much do we look into it? And then we did do an episode on the Giga Leak as well. But this is, as Summer just said, right? Bigger. And does somebody else want to take over and explain kind of what happened or what we presume has happened and that sort of thing?
Just quickly to how much bigger this is, folks that are going through this data are saying it's probably going to be a month before we understand the depth of how much before we actually understand everything that is in there, everything that's coming out. I mean, I keep refreshing like a page that is going through some of these leaks, like actively, like there is stuff actively coming out while we're talking and probably will be for the next few weeks. I guess I guess we can talk about the timeline of all of this. Maybe that makes the most sense. Let's go in chronological order. So it was sometime last week. The statement was before we actually knew about before the leaks actually started coming out. The Game Freak announced that a data breach had happened to their company, but all they addressed, I mean, it's a big deal. I shouldn't say all they addressed, but what they addressed in their statement was that a lot of personal company info had been stolen, something like over 2,500 employees' personal information, like previous and current information, like sensitive information had been stolen. Mm-hmm. And just a statement about how they need to beef up their security, something along those lines. Then over the weekend, we start to find out that actually we have a terabyte of information, just data from Game Freak of obviously Pokemon is the bulk of it, but also their other games, source code, early developer notes. We'll get more into it, but just an insane amount of information, which is what has been focused on. So far, to our knowledge, no personal data has been released. Leakers are focusing, folks that have this data, all that they have released so far has been information about old games. We have source code for games from the DS and 3DS zones. We're hearing that they're going to start doing Switch games next, though. That's what's on the docket. Yeah, that as of like 30 minutes ago, Patrick, Switch games are next. And right, they're basically
seems like that might make people even madder that are involved in these companies.
That might expedite a response, I think, on all of this. So that's kind of caught up to speed as far as like the timeline of things that are happening, as far as like the actual what is happening. Like, where do we want to go from there?
Well, let's just start with the source code, I guess. The source code makes making games and copies easier than just like ROM hacking, right?
This is huge for fan games. I'll go ahead and say it.
Like that's where I'm slightly excited.
Yes. As someone who used to do a lot of not just like fan games and fan comics using original like from the specifically advanced generation of graphics, like I used to do a lot of spriting. Honestly, this is really exciting for me because I love black and white. Like I'm over here like maybe I'll get back into spriting and maybe I'll get into doing comics again, specifically with the black and white assets because I love that generation. I think that's so cool. It's how it came about.
Well, absolutely. This was a theft. It wasn't a leak. It was a theft. This is no different than if somebody hacked into your phone and took all your pictures and all your emails and then put them out on the internet. This is no different than that. It's not a leak. It's not any like somebody like, it's not like a Woodward and Bernstein Nixon thing of like, this is not for the greater good of people. Like this is just a massive leak of information.
Yeah, I think of a leak, you think about somebody that knows information and kind of talks about it, right? Like gives you a little info about what they know. That's a leak, right? And I guess you could argue that even like leaking pictures or something is like still within the realm of leak. But yeah, when it comes to like just dumping tons of data, is that the term?
Like hacking it with Alteryx and whatever, getting their API and their servers and whatever. Like absolutely,
Sorry, what you were going to move on to something else though.
I was just wanting to talk about the fan games and the fact that like me and my son watch a ton of randomizers and like weird hacked Nuzlocks. And like if they could actually like, and they're obviously just doing ROM hacks, like if they could like create new stuff from that, that's really cool to me. And then like Summer, as you were just saying about like the sprite work of like Black and White, like that was the last time they had the sprites. So they're like, and I think they did sprites for literally like every Pokemon that existed up to that point, and then went to the 3D models for X and Y.
Mhm.
So yeah, like that's the fanciest sprites you got is Black and White. So that's
Well, and we've got source code for 3DS generation as well. So all of that is going to be accessible to fan game folks.
I love Sun and Moon. This is where I'm excited, but also like not like this.
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting aspects is kind of getting a peek behind the curtain. Game Freak is a pretty historically tight-lipped company. They have that a lot in common with Nintendo, which the Giga Leak, that was the most interesting part to me, was all these crazy unreleased art pieces that we never would have gotten to see ever if it hadn't been for this. And I feel like something similar is happening. There's like unreleased beta sprites and things like of that nature, which if you would like, you can go find online. I'm not going to directly tell you where to go, but it is not very hard to find with a quick Google search and Reddit at the end of that Google search. But like, that's what's really crazy to me. And that's probably the most interesting part to me, is just seeing how the sausage is made in a company that has been doing it for so long and doing it very well for so long. It's like, now we get to see what that looks like on the back end. You know, there's like map editors and the sprites that y'all mentioned that are just now accessible by everyone. Especially the map editor in particular is what's going to be a specific tool that I think fan creators can use. But it gets into this weird realm, because it's like, well, if you're using leaked source code to make your fan game, that makes it instantly illegal, and you can instantly take it down unless you're compiling a brand new build, which I guess the source code makes it easier. I'm not a computer scientist or a programmer, but I mean, that's my understanding with, you know, the N64 ROMs is like being a new compilation is technically a little bit more legal. And I'm like wondering if something similar is going to happen here, but it's like, yeah, we can talk about like, oh, it's great for fan games, but I'm like, are they not all just going to get taken down? Because they are pissed about this, and they are going to go after as much as they can.
Well, because it's basically, I mean, the code is, I don't know, is it copyright? It has to be copyrighted. It's like stealing the masters from something else, right? Like it's.
I don't know if you can copyright code. But I mean, I think they could take down a fan game anyway, right? Like,
true.
And if they want, this might, the counter argument to everything you're saying is this might make them more aggressive about fan games, period. Because, I don't know that they will be or won't be, but like, right? Like maybe fan games have more tools, but maybe they're now gunning for them. Is the opposite of it. I don't know. Well,
I'm curious what like the Video Game History Foundation is doing with it would do with this information, because they've always been wanting like source code from like any video game they can get their hands on. They've been trying to encourage publishers to give them like a controlled version of source code. Like they now have it. It's stolen though. I don't know what their ethics are, and I'm in their Discord. I should probably see what they're saying about it. But
I would guess any company on the up and up wouldn't want to include stolen things in their archivals. But you know, especially right now, but like 5 years, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like that's where it gets a little murkier.
At the end of if I remember correctly, it was the Video Game History Foundation that at the end of the eShop for the 3DS and the Wii shop, like took donations to legally purchase literally everything from the shops that they didn't already have in their possession to make sure that they could have it for the foundation. So that alone, with it before the eShop shut down, knowing how easy it was to hack a 3DS and they still wouldn't do it for that, I don't think they're touching it.
Yeah.
I
that
feel like
makes
they
sense.
have some like clandestine, like Vatican style vault where they have all the like illegal source code that they can't technically say that they have, but they have it like hidden away somewhere. That's I don't know. That's my headcanon of what they do with all that info.
Well, I don't want us to necessarily get into the nitty gritty of this, but we've kind of talked about some of the past stuff that has come out, right? But there's also been some more relevant to today. I mean, you were just saying that source code for Switch games might come out, and I don't know
what they're gonna. It's what they'll focus on when they're done with X and Y, the 3DS era.
And I don't know all about this, but I do know from just broad strokes that there's been some information about future things too, right? Not the Super Switch, Pokemon Legends, ZA, that sort of thing. We don't have to necessarily get into the specifics of it, but can anybody explain some of the things related to that, at least big picture?
The Super Switch connection is kind of what I've been calling it, but the Gen 10 code name has been leaked. Should I say it or no?
I think it's okay.
It's a code name.
It's a word.
Yeah,
it's
true.
a code name. It doesn't really,
Yeah.
I guess it's true. I'm also wondering, is this the code name that the Game Freak is using, or is this a code name that Nintendo told them to use? Because we've heard and we've discussed other leaked, rumored code names for it. So I think.
Well,
it'd be okay.
the Generation 10 Pokemon code name is Gaia, apparently internally. And then it's being developed for code name Ounce, which is corroborated in other leaks for Super Switch as the code name that Nintendo is using internally.
It's also being developed for the current Switch and the next Switch, which
is something we've speculated about, but now have confirmation that.
Yeah. And then apparently, I mean, rumor is that Pokemon Legends ZA is done and has been done for a while, which that doesn't really surprise me, to be honest.
It's been done. I think what's been understood is that they actually are like, they're still working on it. Like they're still shaping it up. And that's why we haven't gotten a release date yet, is because they actually are letting them work on it until they want to release
polishing.
This is the first November that like a Pokemon game or a DLC has not released since 2015.
That's crazy.
Like because last year was the DLC year, then it was the remake. It was the new gen, the remake. It goes in a cycle of new game, DLC, remake, and we didn't have a remake this year. We don't have any Black Friday game, and we've always had one the entire Switch lifetime, if not just the DLC. So I'm not surprised that it's done or was planned to be done for November, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, this kind of, to me, though, almost reads as like the Super Switch was intended to be out and has been, and since the delay happened, they said, okay, let's push it further down the line, give you a little bit of extra time, because I don't think they necessarily care about the quality of the game out the door as much as I want to believe that they do. I think they wanted it to tie it closer to the release of the Super Switch to boost the sales of the new system.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the future stuff. Was there anything else that, I mean, we don't necessarily want to like give away details. I don't know, like where we want to stop.
I'm curious about the name Ounce. For Switch 2, and my guess, and I've not corroborated this anybody on the internet, is that it is a 9-ounce device, the 9th Nintendo system.
Ooh, I like this. I like that.
The Switch 1 is 10.5 ounces without the Joy-Con.
Okay.
Without the what's wrong with you? Why do you know that?
I googled it before.
Was that what people were saying about
you
the code?
thought to Google it though? I mean,
no, I
God.
was like, I'm not corroborate. I've not seen anybody else say that's why it's called Ounce.
Okay,
but
all right.
If you're right, you heard it here first.
Yeah, that's nutso. Yeah, and I'll just add, there's another game that is supposedly being developed by the same devs that did the Diamond and Pearl remakes. It was mistakenly rumored to be an MMO, but they've backtracked on that and said that it's supposedly a Splatoon-like.
Wait. I remember seeing when this leak first happened, something about Pokemon MMO, and I kind of forgot about that. But that turns out that might not be
on that.
the case.
And apparently the assignment was
Splatoon-like?
Splatoon-like.
What the
Is
hell
this
does that
what gets
mean?
Patrick into Pokemon?
No,
Yeah.
because who knows how it'll be.
Well, what does
I
that
don't-
even mean? Like competitive? I mean, like a 4v4 competitive Pokemon game or something like
Mhm.
that, probably.
Maybe. I mean,
Where
we
you
already have
a
Pokemon
team
League.
against a team.
And
Pokemon Unite.
yeah. And honestly, which is honestly a great game. Like the
Yes.
only reason I fell off from Unite is because I didn't have a team to play with regularly. So if we get Pokemon Splatoon, it's over. Just
Okay.
kidding, because if it's a Diamond and Pearl devs, then like
Well, it might play fine, but it's just going to look like shit.
well, no, it'll look fine, but they'll never give us a bunch of things that they said they were going to give us. Actually, sorry, we're
Well,
getting
they
too
had to
into
work on this game.
We're getting too in. I know you're right. That's actually
Too far in the weeds.
yep. Sorry.
It's fine. That's why we're doing this. But I know we've talked about this in the past with ethics of leaks and stuff like that. I'm curious where everybody comes down on this, because I think I can already sense some differences, and I don't think no judgment, because I see all sides of the argument here. When something like this happens and you're interested in it, which is not the case for me, like I'm not super interested to know all of the details about old Pokemon games or future ones even. Like that's not meant to be a knock, but like if this was a franchise I was super interested in, I would feel really torn, and I don't know where I would land. How have y'all wrestled with or not wrestled with and just gone one way or the other?
I'm more interested. I don't really care about like what Pokemon, like specifically, like there was a pelican Pokemon and a hippo Pokemon. That's does not interest me at all. I'm kind of interested in like what's coming next, just because I like, that's half of video game fandom is, what's coming for Christmas. And I want to know like that kind of stuff. As Jordan was alluding to earlier, I like the behind the scenes stuff. Like, there's some stuff about like why they chose to spin down Ash on the TV show, like what's happening with the Pokemon or the Detective Pikachu 2 movie. It's been 5 years. Like what's going on with that? It reminds me a lot of like the Sony hack that happened about like 10 years ago when North Korea got mad at a Seth Rogen movie. But that was fascinating in retrospect to see like the notes that like Marvel gave that weren't used for the second Andrew Garfield movie. Like this how the sausage was made like on that. Like that stuff is like, it was like, there was like notes like Spider-Man starts at a 10, like he's already like crying like way too much in scene 1. It gives him nowhere to go by the end. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like that's what like the producers are talking about, like his character arcs. I'm like that stuff's fascinating to me. And like we're talking about Ash's arc with Pokemon. And we want to like be appealing more to these kind of things like that. That's the stuff that's interesting to me. And that's probably because I care about the cartoon to a certain extent because I watch it with my kids. And I'm kind of interested
Actually,
in
that's one Pokemon thing I do is watch the anime with my kid. Yeah.
That final Ash season was really, really good. And so I was
like the Journeys. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Journeys was like weirdly good.
Yeah, it like ended in the same. Oh my! I'm getting goosebumps with his final scene with his rival. His rival like is cool now and he's not like a jerk. And then he's like, man, like you should probably get in like Pokemon conservation. And Ash does the same thing. Like, yeah, my rival like told me I was being a punk, and now I'm gonna be a good conservationist. And he gets in the exact same place as he did like at the very first episode. He's like, I'm gonna be the best Pokemon master because my rival told me I wasn't good enough. And I'm like, this is beautiful. This is so good. But
it's like poetry. It rhymes.
It rhymes. Yeah. Thank you, George.
Full circle.
But then my son is not really into the new Pokemon Horizon. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm torn as well. I mean, I think ultimately it just speaks to the larger desire for fans to have a little bit more access to these things. And these companies, when they act so secretive, pushes people to do crazy shit like this. Something else that comes to mind is, what was it, like the Splatoon player who bought a bunch of Nintendo stock just to speak at the shareholders meeting? I'm like, this has a similar energy to me because it's like when you hide all of this stuff behind locked doors of franchises that people like obsess over for their entire lives. Like I've been playing Pokemon since I was like 8 years old. Like this is the kind of shit that might end up happening. But at the same time, I'm like, yo, this is straight up highly illegal. Like, and definitely if this person gets caught, should be punished to the fullest extent of the law as much as they want to. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's like, you can't just do this shit with like no expectation of consequence, you know? So that's where I'm kind of like torn on both ends.
Just to respond to something you said too, because I'm curious, like, you know, you say people want more access. And I think that's fair. Like, I think, you know, I don't know what Game Freak and the Pokemon Company do in terms of old materials, if they ever put out concept art or anything like that. I'm guessing they don't.
Hardly.
But like some of that stuff probably should stay behind closed doors too, right? Like, it's like those notes you're talking about, Vince. Like, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to know, and if ever people want to release that stuff, but I can also see reasons to be like, not do that. Because you say that people will just want that, and then when they see that, they're like, oh, we could have had this, and now we're mad that we didn't get this. People are never satisfied. You know, like
I would hate people to read my emails from work when I like made some passive aggressive comment. Like,
yeah, or like your old ideas that you kept on, they were on the cutting room floor for a reason, maybe, you know. Like, I don't know, but I'd like to continue with what we were talking about, Summer, and hear about your perspective.
Yeah. So when I first learned about the leak, I could feel it within my, like, in that moment, I could feel my feelings changing about how I felt about this when this kind of thing happens. If this had been 10 years ago, just generally like leaks with Pokemon, like the account that I'm following for leaks right now, I had muted because I used to be someone who was so fervently against seeing Pokemon leaks. It was something that was like holy to me. I did not ever want to know about specifically new things, right? It was new stuff I didn't want to know about until I saw it in a game for the first time, like the developers intended. And I'm still somewhere in that zone with new stuff. First of all, a lot of what is coming out is some of my favorite games. Loved Heart Gold, Soul Silver, loved Black and White, loved X and Y and the 3DS titles. So getting to see a lot of that I'll say it feels good. I'm sorry. I'll say it. It feels good to see some of this stuff. I'm really excited. I felt that shift in me with this specific leak. And I don't know if it's because I do know. It's because I wasn't as satisfied with these past two generations of Pokemon, the Switch titles. And so this kind of struck that excitement with me again. And I don't know how much I want to get into the feelings of just like IP as a whole. Maybe I should say it because I know if David was here, he's like, IP fucking sucks and we should all have access to everything, right? I don't know that I like fully am on board with that, but Pokemon has been such a just revolutionary thing creatively for so many people. There's so much fan creation that has been spurned because of it and has actually helped so many people realize how creative that they can be just through this one specific, like a lot of people's introduction to fandom and the creative expression that comes along with that. I think there is a lot to be said about that and just how copyright is viewed differently in a lot of different countries. I don't have a cut and dry answer. That's fair. Just my feelings are that I am torn. I won't say explicitly what they are, but we did get a modicum of information about ZA. And I think that what they shared is kind of funny and fair. And that's all they're going to share about it. A leaker did play ZA and I'm glad that they didn't share more than what they did. And I think 10 years ago, I would have been pissed at just that amount of information. And here I am seeing it and I'm like, that's kind of funny. Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, I think like a rare example of a company that actually like puts out source code is id. You know, you can download the source code for Doom. And I think they have it all the way up to Doom 3 now, which is I think a 20-year-old game at this point. But I mean, that's not common. Most of these companies are not releasing the source codes for their games. And for me, I feel like, man, once a game gets old enough, let people have the tools, you know, like, And I feel like I don't ever hear about someone hacking into id to get the tools for Doom. It's like, oh yeah, because they just put it out and they're like, yeah, whatever, just take it. And we're not making money off this. Make this play on your fridge. That'd be funny. Let's see it. Put it on a pregnancy test. Like, wait, shit, you got it to run on a pregnancy test?
You have to run on bacteria.
Yeah, that's insane. And it's like, that's the kind of cool shit we could have if more companies were a little bit more open. So, I mean, part of me is like, I feel like some of this stuff should be made publicly available, and like IP should run out, and like this copyrights shouldn't last forever, to what you were saying, Summer. Like, it's just, so yeah, I don't know how to feel overall about the whole thing, but I'm just like, dude, once it gets to a certain point of age, like, I feel like access to that information is more important than a private company's ability to keep it private or want to keep it private. Yeah. But the new shit, I'm just like, nah, sorry, dog. That's theft.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Yeah, and that's where I think I do draw the line for myself. I'm not interested in the new stuff. I want to see it the way that they intend for us to see it on the first go, right? And then maybe in 5-10 years, it would be fun to know all of the stuff that didn't make it into the game.
Yeah,
I do think, Jordan, your questioning and line of thinking right there does bring me back to my questioning of how this information actually did get released, and like, not to get too tinfoil hatty, but thinking about the developers that have been with Game Freak the longest and how they are true game developers, and they have the clutches of Pokemon and Nintendo to serve, like, that are gripping them. Like, I don't know, is foul play, like, is it internal? Who knows? It makes me think that it's like a
disgruntled
like
somebody,
disgruntled employee who,
I mean, is it a disgruntled employee? Is it, I saw, like, is it Pal World people, either Pal World or fans on behalf of Pal World trying to strike back? Is it just some crazy Pokemon fan that just wants all the details? Is it just a random passerby that wanted to do a ransomware attack on a big company and it has nothing to do with Pokemon? And they don't care.
Yeah.
And that's, and I don't know if we'll ever know, but that's like, those are the different, like, ranges I could see, like, what the motivations would be.
Yeah, the timing, you bring up Pal World, the timing does feel, and that's where, but I get, for me, it's like, yeah, it could make sense that could be like if you don't stop, we're going to release more information. Like, if you don't stop suing Pal World, we're going to release more information. But that's Nintendo suing, not Pokemon Company, not Game Freak. So it's like, is it somebody, I would feel like somebody who is capable of doing this much of a data breach would not be doing it for those reasons, because they would know better of, like, how the company structure works. I
don't know. I mean, and you're right. Like, in my first job, which I won't say for this identification question, but we were robbed a lot by our own employees. So that did happen a lot. Got hit with tire and irons, locked in the freezer. These things happen. So it just could have been one of those situations. So.
I mean, I've worked places, and that's all I'll say as a response to what you said. Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing too, though, I mean, according to the translation that I read of the Game Freak statement, this attack happened in August of 2024. So I think for a timeline that is important is it a response to Pal World? I don't remember when they announced that, but that's just... But again, that's when they say it happened. Yeah. There's no information to corroborate that provided by Game Freak.
Yeah. Well, and they admitted the employee data first, which I don't know if that, this is tinfoil hatty, it's like, that's why I'm like, is this just like trying to get money, ransomware kind of stuff, or is it, that's just what they say for sympathy, because that sounds really shitty.
Well, not even just sympathy. I think that's what you say, because that's the stuff that can does the most sensitive information. All the source code and details about future games, whatever. Like, that's not gonna get anybody's credit card stolen or something. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
no, but it could bring threats upon the company. I just 2 months ago, I learned about the bizarre criminal activity that was related to the man who owned the company that puts out Pocky. And it was like a whole, it was like a whole hostage situation. And he was like tied up naked in a warehouse. And like, if they didn't have their demands met, it was like this whole thing. And I remembered reading this, it was like in the 80s. And I was like, wow, they just don't threaten companies like they used to. I'm like, oh, gee, and now all this is happening. I'm like, I didn't mean it like this.
It's all digital now, yeah.
Yeah, no, that part too, yeah. But I mean, that was like my red flag though when I saw like all of the personal data like that was stolen. I was like, oh my god, are we gonna find out about like Masuda is gonna get like kidnapped and like put on an island and we only have 24 hours to raise so much money, or we don't get Pokemon anymore. I don't know. Again, tinfoil hattie, I'll stop.
Well, I do think we need to wrap this up pretty soon. And I know we do not necessarily want to like give out like a lot of specifics, whether or not we've even looked into them. But just to close out this conversation, we kind of talked wide ranging about it, but is there anything that anybody wanted to make sure and include in our discussion before we wrap this up?
I really liked Jordan's point about like, when does this information deserve or need to get out? Like we're like Americans dealing with like a foreign corporation that's like privately owned, that's like highly secretive, like, are they privately owned? I don't actually know about that, but like we're not going to get much stories about game development. It's an industry like unlike other medium. Like there's so many documentaries about film, about book writing, about all these other mediums. Like if you want to know how the sausage is made, you want to know the decisions that were into the making of The Godfather or anything like that, you can get that. You won't get anything other than like what Nintendo allows out about Mario or about the creation of Pokemon that are highly controlled interviews. So we'll like those of us that are interested like in the true story of like, or just primary sources for being like a historian, like those primary sources don't exist. We don't have access to we have access to Lincoln's letters or Nixon's tapes. We don't have access to the decisions unless like a theft happens. And that's kind of screwed up. And I don't want a theft to happen, but I do want that information. And I want those primary sources out in some way about things that we care about. Cause I love Pokemon Soul Silver. And I'd love to know more about that. And a documentary would be great, but no one's going to ever give primary sources. And I thought Jordan made a very good point about that.
Well, all right then, unless there's anything else, I think we'll wrap up our conversation here. Obviously, this is kind of a continuing story that we might continue to cover in the coming weeks, depending on, what comes out and what we learn about the reasons and individuals involved and that sort of thing. So we may be talking about this more. But for now, we are going to take another short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the games that we've been playing recently. The main thing I think I'm going to talk about is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I have now beaten the game, y'all. My son and I, we rolled credits on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom in kind of a short amount of time. Like, my son is definitely not a side quest person. He is a main story person. We had several arguments about that throughout because I kind of had a sense that if we blasted through the main story, we might do it kind of quickly. I don't know where we ended up at. I'd have to guess 20 hours, maybe 15 even, from gunning it. I know that if you don't gun it, you get a healthy amount more. There are parts of the map that are still clouded over, I feel like, on our playthrough. That said, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad it didn't outstay its welcome, and you can enjoy your time more with it if you do all the side quests. And some of the ones we did, I really enjoyed because I felt like they were nice and varied. I don't know if that's been anybody else's experience, but I don't think I have a whole lot else to talk about. I've played a few other games here and there, but really that was sort of the main thing. And I think it's a wonderful game. And I think the last chunk of it was really cool, actually, like without getting into spoiler territory there, but I really enjoyed the closing of it. Definitely a worthy 2D Zelda game.
Okay, sick. Yeah, thank you for not going into spoilers because I have not actually played this game, and that is crazy to me because I am like a pretty big 2D Zelda fan, but I've been trying to commit myself to Star Ocean, the Second Story R, And like, I'm going to beat this game before I start Zelda, because I know if I start Zelda, I will never go back to this game.
You haven't even started it.
I haven't even started it.
Oh,
no.
wow.
Yeah, I am really committing to it. And then I keep getting sidetracked by watching spooky movies for October and trying to prepare this show and get all that in order. But yeah, so Star Ocean has been kind of like my go-to kind of game, just to kind of like play a little bit, and then also my bedtime game at the same time. I am in the town of Linga. I finally kind of did all of the stuff I forgot you could do, and I caught myself up to where I should have already been doing these little things. I think I have 5 characters now. I think I'm about to get my 6th, but still really enjoying it. Really interesting mix of like fantasy, but like also sci-fi. It's just kind of strange. It's like a really weird world where like sci-fi elements exist, but the world that you're in is fantasy. It's just like a really interesting mix that I haven't quite seen before. But and then the other thing I was going to say is I was playing Deadlock, and I am officially, after about 20 hours, I am uninstalling Deadlock. I'm officially an old man. No more metas. No more learning new characters. I'm fucking over this shit. I got so mad the other night because it was just like, you know, all this game is like League of Legends or Dota, where every item has a block of text that you have to read that has like words that mean specific things, numbers that mean specific things that go and correspond, interact with different numbers. And even though someone gives you a build, it's general, it's not specific. So then you have to know what the other characters on the other team are capable of doing and what their builds mean when you look at their little scroll items. So then you're having to learn like the icons for like 50 to 100 items. I'm like, bro, I'm too old for this shit. I'm like, I'm done. I uninstalled the fucking game. I'm like, we're done here. We gave it the good old college try, but it made me really appreciate Summer, when you're talking about Pokemon Unite. I was like, I don't have to deal with this shit in Pokemon Unite. Pretty simple game. You get to just upgrade your little abilities and you run, and it's like it gives you the same sense of joy. I felt similarly about Heroes of the Storm, which is the failed Blizzard one. But anyway, I just wanted to be like, I hope everyone's having fun with Deadlock, but I'm signing off. But anyway, that's all I've been playing.
Wow. I have been playing the Metaphor Refantasio demo, which if you like JRPGs at all, if you claim to be a fan of JRPGs, then well, I say you need to play this game, or you need to wait for it to go on a sale, because otherwise, if you play the demo like me, you're going to say, I have to buy this game now because I am just blown away, just absolutely blown away with how good this game is. For those of you that don't know, this is the latest game by Atlas. Atlas, by the way, just having an absolute stellar year after releasing Persona 3 Reload and Unicorn Overlord, 2 other bangers that came out. This is the Persona devs making a high fantasy game. And what I think one of my favorite things about this, does the soundtrack incredible? Yes. Battle system, fantastic. Yes. The way that you go through, and it's the same calendar system, and you have your free time like Persona. Yes. However, it's actually the characters and the plot for me too in this, because it's been so long to me personally that we've had a JRPG that isn't afraid to be about something. I feel like so many fantasy games lately have to have so many layers of convolution and pretend to be about things, and this is so in your face about just class warfare and discrimination and taking down, the chains that bind us. It's just really, it's so far, just even in the demo, just really great dialogue about that and understanding what the systems are that keep us where we are. And it's honestly refreshing to have a game like that in today's day and age that was like, fuck the anti-woke mob. We're going to make a game about how diversity is literally important. And it's so nice. I could go on, and it's only the demo. You guys, am I going to spend $70 on it later this week?
It's a Sega game, right?
Or
it'll be
am
on
I?
sale.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping it's going to win Game of the Year, and then I'm going to buy it when it goes on a Game of the Year sale. Which is why I am going to try to shift gears. Before this demo came out, I was finally getting back into Like a Dragon, the title starring Ichiban. So I'm going to try to get back into that. Most specifically, I've been obsessed with I finally got the business simulator where you're just going through and developing your business. And wow, I am hooked on that. I sure loved my lemonade stand when I was 7 years old, and I love this. This could be the whole game for me. Building up my franchise. I absolutely love it. No, and I am remembering why I got hooked on this in the first place. Also, if I want to buy Metaphor Refantazio, I'm going to need to uninstall Like a Dragon to have space on my Xbox. So I need to get through Like a Dragon first. Otherwise, my co-op time with friends has been Wingspan again. And when I'm playing with a bigger group, there are longer delays in between my turns. So I have decided to open up Baldur's Gate 3 in the other window. Yes, that is my pro gamer move. I have a PC that is powerful enough for me to play Wingspan and Baldur's Gate 3 in 2 separate windows and be able to have Discord up and running and be in a call. And I'm smashing that soundboard. If you are ever playing online with me in Discord, I will play the Vine Boom sound every time you try to make a point, and I think it's stupid. And I started a new campaign yesterday with some buddies. If anybody's familiar with the Masks engine, it's basically superhero high school. And we are being shitty, edgy teenagers in this campaign. We've only had one session, and I'm already obsessed with how shitty and edgelord-y we've been. Vince, what have you been playing?
Well, my kid has taken the Echoes of Wisdom cartridge, so I have not been able to play much Echoes of Wisdom. But I was jonesing for some top-down Zelda, so I've been playing Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventures, the GameCube one, not the Game Boy Advance one. Game Boy Advance, it was like a small mode on the Link to the Past remake cartridge. But Four Swords Adventures is like a full-fledged game. I don't understand why it's not been re-released, because it's great. You control, especially for single player, you control 4 links, and it's all level based. So you like have like a different level, and like one of them can be like a very like combat focused level. One could be like a very dungeon heavy level. One was just like me in a town like solving a problem level, which was really kind of crazy. And I'd forgotten most of it. And so it's just a lot of fun to just go and play the Zelda, and it's so much better than the Triforce Heroes 3DS game. Like it's just so much easier to like control all 4 links. Like Triforce Heroes made me mad. I'm like, there should just be a button to make myself a tower. The way there was like 4 formations, like you can just push hotkeys and put your links in different formations. It's just like a much better game. It's kind of like a souped up Link to the Past art style. It's very, very nice. We're talking last week about like NSO, like games that should just be like free, like a Tetris 99 that's 4-player. And I was doing a run, and I was like listening to your episode, and I'm like, Four Swords Adventures.
Yes.
Like I'm playing it on my Steam Deck right now. It is pirated. But Nintendo's, I bought it before. And I have multiple GBA cords, so Nintendo got my money. And I'm reading the guide along with it, which I also own. And I have a Four Swords Adventures shirt that my congressman complimented. He said, that's
See, merch sales, that's where they make it up.
And then it is such a great game. And then the other game I was wanting to talk about was a bit of Astrobot. I've been playing that with my 5-year-old daughter. She's been all about Astrobot. She asked right before we were recording tonight to be like, can we play Astrobot? I'm like, we can't play right now. She is not very good at video games. I'm like a brother, but she loves just going and punching all of the little robots in town. Whenever you like, basically like stars, like in Mario Galaxy or Odyssey that you're good on there, they're all little robots, and then they live in your town, and a lot of them are based on video game characters. So like if she punches Ken from Street Fighter, he'll do a little Shoryuken and hit her, and it's very cute. She hit the Katamari Damacy guy, and he rolled her up into a little ball and rolled her around the little hub world. She was delighted. And then you get a little gotcha machine where you get little toys for them, and it uses like the haptic feedbacks of the controllers. So you like pull the ball, and then you like pop open the gotcha machine, and so she does that, and she shakes it, and then she has a blast playing Astrobot. On top of it just being like a really good like just like 3D platformer that's like just as good as Mario Galaxy Odyssey. And it has like weird like powers like Mario Wonder where it takes over the whole level. It's a stellar. If you're a Nintendo fan, Astrobot is really good. I wouldn't recommend pirating it because I don't know what system you'd even be able to run it on. We talked about piracy today, but it's great. Astrobot is fantastic. It's worth buying a PS5 for if you have the money. And then the last thing is Mortal Kombat 1 got a big story DLC. Mortal Kombat 1 was my game of the year last year. I was actually very disappointed with the DLC. Like the last DLC story campaign for the previous Mortal Kombat game was really good, really well acted, really just like fun story. This one was kind of just like a couple scenes and it was over. It didn't seem like a very fun quest, but there's new characters involved. So it's pretty exciting. Ghostface from Scream is going to be added soon, but not yet. And I'm very excited for that. But all in all, Mortal Kombat 1 Chaos Reigns was kind of disappointing. And that's all from me today.
Well, very nice. I think that's going to do it then for this episode on the Game Freak Teraleak. Thanks so much, Vince, for coming and joining us today. We
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. Thanks to all of our patrons on Patreon. If you're looking for me, Patrick, you can find me online as PDYX.
You can find me at Weebwitched.
You can find me on the internet at Bordan.
And what about you, Vince? You got something you can plug?
Yeah, you can find me on the Some of My Friends Read Comics podcast. We cover comic books. I actually started reading comic books because I pirated a comic and then it got me into writing comics. But Some of My Friends Read Comics, you can check us out every other week on that show. I also have a TikTok, Cool Uncle Vince. I talk about my Mario Kart toys and a variety of other different things. And you can find me on the Discord as Cool Uncle Vinny of the Piantas. I'm there right now. So
very nice. Well, if you want to find our show, you can find us as Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook, and we are Switch Headz on Twitter. And we, always appreciate anybody who wants to leave us a review on Apple or share our podcast or what have you. And that's going to then do it for this episode on the Big Game Freak Leak. Until next week, stay safe out there. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.